Hello humans, it's not Martine, it is just Carbon Bonded Books, and this is 12 More TBRs of Christmas. 12 More TBRs of Christmas is based off of one of my booktube besties, Just Martine's 12 TBRs of Christmas, where they read a bunch of secret TBRs throughout the year, and then the 12 days leading up to Christmas, she drops them all in a row, and it is usually a crazy chaotic time. So me and some friends got together, and we are doing our own version of 12 More TBRs of Christmas. So that is what this is, and it's a good time. And hopefully you saw the ones before me and are going to continue on with the TBRs after me. So for my contribution to the 12 More TBRs of Christmas, I decided I was going to read the colors of the Ace pride flag. In some of Martine's videos, you may or may not have seen this flag poking around in the background. Reading a pride flag is fun. Doing colors is fun. This was a very fun TBR for me. So with that, I will send you back in time to past Adriana as she read through her colorful books. For the next stripe of our pride flag, we have James by Percival Everett. This is the black one. This is a retelling of Huck Finn from the perspective of Jim the slave, and the reason I decided to pick this up is a bunch of people from my book club at the beginning of the year talked about this being like their favorite book of 2024, so that piqued my interest a little bit. And then on 4th of July weekend, or maybe back in May, my grandma was showing me her book club's like list of books that they were going to be doing at her retirement community, and this was on there, and I knew what this was about, and I will admit my own prejudices and biases. I really wanted to see what a bunch of octogenarians from Idaho would have to say about this book. So I told Grandma I would, make a trip of it. I'd come down and visit her, and I would go to book club with her. And I did that. And it was actually a lot more positive of an experience than I was expecting. So I think I'll talk about that experience after I go into a little bit more what this book is. So like I mentioned, it is a retelling of Huck Finn from the perspective of Jim the slave. As far as I can remember, I haven't read Huck Finn since I was 14, and I had to read it for school, so I didn't really enjoy my experience of reading Huck Finn, but I believe this follows the story of Huck Finn rather well. We hit all of like the major story beats, but adds a lot of like really cool and interesting flair in the in-between parts when we don't have to follow the story of Huck Finn as closely, like when Huck and Jim get separated. I think this was really well done. Like, I don't know how else to say that. Like, there is a reason this has won so many awards. It is so captivating, and I enjoy it the most when it is just Jim and we're not beholden to the story of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I think Jim as a character is fascinating and really is representative of so many cool and interesting ideas that I feel are really delved into and pursued to their fullest extent. I'm being very vague because I don't want to spoil anything, because I do really think people should go out and read this book. Even if you didn't enjoy Huckleberry Finn like me, I think you could very much enjoy this book because I think it is a much better book, and that's what I gotta say. I mean, obviously there's a lot of themes of freedom and racism and identity, and we get a lot of like philosophy. Like, this book is just so deep, and for not being that long, like it's only like a 350 page book. Like, it packs a punch for not a very big book. Definitely highly recommend this book. So yeah, I will talk about my experience now at my grandma's book club. So like I'd mentioned, this retirement community is in Idaho, and so I was under the impression that the people in this book club were probably not going to enjoy this, but actually most of them did. There was one grumpy old man who did not like that this author was stepping on the toes of his favorite book and changed everything about Huck Finn, and he read Huck Finn when he was 10, and it was blah, 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 whatever. There was one curmudgeonly old man, but everybody else really enjoyed it, and the coolest thing about that book club was it brought up a lot of their own like feelings and experiences about the civil rights movement. So a lot of the women, and I guess a couple men, a lot of the people in that group were in like elementary school when schools got like desegregated, and they talked about their experience with that. They talked about their own experiences. Like there were some women from Detroit. There was a woman from Texas. Like there were people from all over the country. So it just got a really interesting snapshot of what these people's lived experiences were during the civil rights movement. Granted, all these people were white. Like, it's still Idaho. Like, we're not getting crazy here. But it was still very interesting to hear these, like, firsthand experiences and the conversation that this book brought to the forefront. My own grandma grew up in a very white part of the country. She grew up in Oregon, so she has never had a lot of experiences with Black culture. Black history was not something they were really teaching in Southern Oregon in the 40s. Yeah. She was born in 36, I believe. So yeah, like she didn't really get a lot of education on like Black culture and Black history. So I was able to kind of like fill her in on some stuff that I'm aware of just through like my own education and research and experiences. And so I think it was just a really good pick for them and for anybody. I think anybody would enjoy this book. I think anybody who wants to enjoy this book could enjoy this book. So I'm just very glad I read this. And I'm getting rambly now because I don't let myself do long form as much anymore. But yes, read this book. I recommend. Sorry about the lighting situation. I meant to film this as soon as I got home and it was still light out, and I promptly did not do that. But anyway, here's my gray stripe. It is Hemingway in Love and War. So funny story about this book. I bought it years and years ago. I was down in San Diego visiting my sister for her birthday, and I met up with Ruby and Kayla while I was down there because this was long enough ago that they were still living in San Diego because neither of them do that anymore. And they took me to a really cool bookstore. I saw this title, Hemingway in Love and War. I thought this was going to be like a fictionalized retelling of his time in World War I. Turns out it is a non-fiction collection of letters and diary entries from a nurse that he had a situationship with during World War I, and then some of his own letters back to his parents. And then, you know, an introduction and a conclusion from this author, James Nagle. So this is not what I was expecting, but I am glad I read it. It gave me a lot of perspective for when I do eventually read A Farewell to Arms, which was the book that Hemingway wrote based on his experience in World War I. I just don't feel like this particularly was put together all that well. Like, the author chooses just to dump all of the diary entries in one go, dump all of Agnes's, the nurse's letters to Hemingway all in one go, dump all of Hemingway's letters to his parents all in one go. And I feel like it would have been better served to have like broken that up a little bit with like some analysis of like different parts of the letters, because it's just kind of boring to read someone's diary for months and read someone's letters that you're only getting to read one side of the conversation of for months. I just feel like it wasn't very well put together, and I felt like the author didn't have a lot of great insight as to the relationship that Hemingway and Agnes had. The other listed author on here, Henry Villard, he was another Red Cross officer at the same time as Hemingway and like met him in the same hospital. So I think he had, you know, some insights into like actually having met Hemingway, but it's not like they were like super close buds or anything. So this felt kind of like a cash grab of an older man who had some access to a very famous author before he became famous. I ended up rating it 2 stars because, like I said, I do think there is some good insights in here for me, just like biographically for when I eventually do read A Farewell to Arms. But in general, I can't say that this was in and of itself a great read. So that's kind of a bummer. But, you know, sometimes there are duds. And, you know, I do appreciate this book for the memories it brings back to a time when I visited my friends in California. I am once again coming to you in the dead of night, also known as 5:30 p.m., and I finished my white stripe, which chronologically I have finished all the books, but vexologically, vexology is the study of flags, right? Vexologically, not the last. But I read Saga for my white stripe, which in a stack, it's not going to be the most visually pleasing, but this is a very visually and story pleasing book. I know a lot of people are obsessed with this series of graphic novels, and I can see why. This volume contains the first 5 chapters, I believe, 5 or 6 chapters, and I really just want to keep reading. I want to binge this whole series. It came out in 2012, so technically I might be able to, but I'm also reading this for Squash That Series, so I gotta move on to my next prompt, and I don't know if the next volume will work for the next prompt, but if it does, I might be reading the next volume. But at least for now, I'm done with this. But it is kind of like a sci-fi fantasy, like futuristic fantasy is probably a better term for it. There seems to be this like intergalactic war going on between like a certain species of alien and another species of alien. One of them lives on a moon and gets called Moonies. The other ones have wings. And we have this couple. You can see on the cover here, one is from one side of the war, the other is from the other side of the war, and they have a little baby, and it causes like a huge intergalactic incident. So now they have all of these like bounty hunters and stuff, or freelance mercenaries, chasing them down, trying to capture them. They have the king of one of the sides or prince of one of the sides trying to like track them down and capture them. But it's just, the art style is beautiful. I think even with only having like the first 5 chapters, I can really get a feel for a lot of the characters and what they're doing and what's going on. And I like it. I do like graphic novels pretty much every time I read them, and I should read more, but very, very much like this and recommend it highly. So with that, I will let another version of me talk about another book. Hello, so this is the last book you are seeing of this video, but the first book I finished for it, and that is Shark Heart, A Love Story by Emily Habbock. This, I actually finished it about 2 weeks ago, but then I was hanging out with all of my BookTube besties, including Martine, at our other BookTube besties, Lizzie's wedding. So that was super fun, and I am not upset that I didn't get to record my reaction to this immediately, especially because the week after that I gotta go to book club, ruminate on it a bit more, and I've had people staying with me for the last week, so I haven't felt like in a super good space to like record my reaction to it, so I've been able to ruminate it on even more. And I think what I have to say is this book is the epitome of a good idea, but not thinking through the idea to get it to that good execution. So what this book is about is starting off with this young couple. They just got married, and the husband gets diagnosed with like this strange disease that like slowly mutates you like into an animal. His animal is a shark. So over the course of a couple months, he is like slowly mutating into a full-on shark. It's a metaphor for disease, whatever disease you personally want to put onto that is up to you, because there's a Q&A with the author and she says she has no idea. And that's like a pretty common theme with a lot of these like loose metaphorical theming threads, is that the author really doesn't want to put work into interpreting her own work. She just wants to put it out there and be total death of the author, no thoughts, just vibes, like, and I don't know if I like that as a reader. Like, obviously I'm going to have a different interpretation of a work than the author does sometimes, but you can kind of feel throughout this book that the author really didn't care about the deeper meanings of what she was doing. This is kind of a multimedia to some extent type book where the husband is being turned into a shark, had big dreams of, like, you know, writing an incredible Broadway play. So some of the scenes in this book are like scripted scenes like you would see in a play, but the author doesn't really seem to care if those are interpretations of what's happening within the book, if these are diegetic to a point where like these are scenes that the husband is writing like for this play as he's going through this mutation. There's scenes that take place after he is fully mutated into a shark. So like there's that weirdness. So it's just the author is very, very young. And I think she had some interesting ideas on how to write a book. And I would be really interested to see what she does in the future. If as she ages, she kind of starts to care about some of that stuff a little bit more, for lack of a better word. So that's just the first part, is like the young husband and wife going through. I also don't really like the husband as a character. I thought he was kind of like not a great guy. And then the wife is like very much doormat. So like there's that. And then the middle part is following the wife's mom, Angela, from her time as like a young teen, getting pregnant with the wife from the first part at a very young age, and kind of dealing with like being a single mom, as well as also getting diagnosed with this mutation. But her mutation is much slower. It's on the scale of like years rather than months. So we kind of see why the wife might kind of be the way she is in the first part. And then the third part is following the husband after his full mutation into a shark, in his, you know, swimming through the vast empty ocean and actually finding another person like him who also got mutated into a shark. I really wanted to like this book because I think there are a lot of really great ideas in here. There were a couple really great side characters that I would have liked to have like delved into more, but overall it's not a book I think I can recommend. But it is purple and looks very nice in a purple stripe of a stack. So that is where we're at with the end of this vlog, which feels weird to say because I haven't read the rest of the books yet, but I will get there. So I assume I will be doing an outro at the end of this. So roll to conclusions and outro. And we're back. So here is our stack. I'm pretty happy with how much color we have going on in all of these. Kind of wish my white stripe was a little bit thicker, but you know, I did really enjoy this book, so here it is. Of the four, I think my definite favorite was James. Just an excellent, excellent book. Overall, I'm pretty happy with all of these except Sharkheart. But you know, it is what it is. And I'm so happy to be surprising such a great human with such a fun project. So definitely go through and check out the other TBRs of Christmas. The next TBR will be posted on Danielle's channel, so be sure to jump over there tomorrow and check it out. And I will catch you on the next video.